Okay.
And good afternoon, everybody. Apologies for the delay, but thank you very much for bearing with us through the technical issues. I'm joined this afternoon by Mr. Matthew Dunstan. Hello, Matthew.
Hi, Paul. How are you going?
Doing
Hi,
okay,
everyone.
apart from the technical issues. Yes.
Oh, well.
Now, we are broadcasting this live on YouTube, so hello to everybody who's watching on YouTube. Also broadcasting it live on Facebook, and this is a new thing for me. So I'm just going to try and get the Facebook live comments working. It wasn't working this morning. I fiddled with something. And I now need to just fiddle with something else, and it's still not working. Okay, so if you're watching this live on Facebook, your comments are not going to appear on the screen there, but I'm going to open another window so that they will appear. I'm also just going to turn off Discord in the background because my computer, I can hear it, it's plinking away, and that means you're all going to hear the plinking noises as well. So I've closed that down. Right, we are ready to go. Audio is quite out of sync, apparently. Okay, so bear with us a minute. I can fix the audio issue. Just stick around. I will come back in a second. Streaming live again. So again, yeah, let me know if the audio is okay now. I don't want to have to reboot the machine midstream because we are already 12 minutes late. Wow. Apologies for that. Apologies, Matthew. So
No
we're
problem.
going to make a start now. So this is basically a live Q&A with Matthew Dunstan. Do you want to just introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, I'm Matthew Dunstan. I'm a game designer currently based in Prague in the Czech Republic. And I've designed a number of games. You might have heard of Elysium, Monumental, Chocolate Factory, and more.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. Audio is okay. Excellent. Right, the audio is okay. So we've known each other a couple of years now, I think. Elysium, which is the image I've got in the background, I think is the first game of yours that I played, and we didn't know each other then. You co-designed that with Brett Gilbert.
Indeed.
You've worked with Brett on a lot of games, haven't you?
Yeah, I don't know what the number would be by now. It must be at least 10 or 12 games, I think, something like that.
Yeah. So,
but my games are co-designs. I think it's definitely minority by myself. So
right.
A lot with Brett, with other people in the UK.
Okay. So which games would you say have you designed any games by yourself?
Yeah, I mean, Monumental is a solo design. And my very first game, Relic Runners with Days of Wonder, was a solo design. So I've got a few, but I prefer to work with other people if possible.
Right. It's interesting because I've spoken to a number of other designers that prefer not to work with other people.
I mean, I guess it just depends what you get used to, I think. Maybe I was used to working with people from the start, and so, you get used to that being the process for making games. Yeah. I mean, I come from a research science background, and all of the projects there are collaborative. Right. So the idea of sort of doing everything by yourself is quite foreign, I guess.
Okay. So when did you start getting into game design then?
It was probably, I think it was around 2010, 2011. So about 10 years ago now. I discovered Board Game Geek, got back into the hobby, and just thought I'd try and make some games. I was still back in Australia then. Right. They weren't very good.
Okay.
But then I came to the UK and met some good people like Brett Gilbert, who was in Cambridge, and I was in Cambridge as well, and we got a really good little community there going. Actually, maybe that's also where the collaboration comes from. I think we got used to testing each other's games, and then just that naturally leads to working on games together, and yeah, it worked out really well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people that I come across use the phrase, oh, you were lucky. People say, oh, Paul, you're lucky to work in the games industry and things like this. And I always say, well, it's not down to luck. I chose to do what I do, and it's been a lot of hard work. However, let's just talk about luck for the minute. When you moved to the UK, you ended up in Cambridge. Cambridge just happens to have a very large concentration of very good game designers and developers.
Yeah, well, I think, it's going to sound, when I was there, so yeah, it was complete luck because at that time Brett had a blog, and the only reason I knew about him was the blog, and I just on a whim, I think I messaged him, and it turned out he lived in Cambridge, right. So it just worked that way.
Yeah.
But in terms of that community, I mean, when we started meeting up, in 2011, so yeah, almost 10 years ago, it was just us. It was just Brett and I. There was the Terrible Games guys, Andrew Sharon and Tom Morgan-Jones, who'd done War on Terror and a few other games like that. But really, there wasn't necessarily a huge community, and I think we once you make something regular, we just met at the pub every week, and that kind of, people grow around that, and a community grew around that. And I like to think that actually that helped foster a lot of great designers who have come through that. And I think also there is some luck in that Cambridge is the type of city that has a lot of inflow of lots of people from different backgrounds, different interests, being a university town. So but at the same time, it's not sort of something like London. So it's a little bit easier for people to make things regularly. And so I think a lot of those things came together to make it a really great sort of hub. And actually we've been running that weekly playtest ever since. So it's been going 2 years pretty much, with, thankfully, actually, Brett and I are not very good organizers. It somehow has kept going all these years.
Yeah.
Without that. So, and always have, 4 or 5 people. So we're really quite fortunate there, I think.
And over the last year or so, I've got to know David Thompson, Trevor Benjamin, designers of War Chest and Undaunted, and they were part of that Cambridge group as well. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, that's so, Trevor moved there from Canada and, he was in the Netherlands before that, and Dave moved from the US. There are people like Chris Marling, who I co-designed Pioneer Days with. There's Dave Neal, who has it's not, I'm pretty sure it's not a secret, the newest Sherlock Holmes box of things are written by Dave, and he's an excellent narrative game designer. Yeah. And and of course Brett, and I'm sure I'm missing people here.
Right.
But it was I like it, and I think hopefully it's a kind of a welcoming community part of it. I think it was never I like to think it was fairly egalitarian and sort of relaxed, and everybody could feel like they could learn something or benefit from good feedback, and that we all sort of helped each other, get how to meet up with publishers and how to sort of get the game signed, and you could sort of share information like that. So that was very, very useful, I think.
Yeah, I didn't realise Dave was from that area as well, because I've actually got to know Dave over the last few years myself, because I'm a massive fan of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. And in fact, on Tuesday, I've got Dave on the show. So this coming Tuesday, I am doing a live playthrough of the introductory scenario for the new set of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective games. And Dave's coming on the show at the start just to talk, 10 minutes or so about his involvement with it. So, cool.
Yeah, it's amazing to think where that came from, because I think he'd been working on them a little bit before he started coming to the group, but we did do some early playtesting, this is probably even 4 or 5 years ago in the group. And at that point, he'll tell more about it, but it was sort of, he just decided to do these sort of fan scenarios for Sherlock Holmes, and that was sort of even before Space Cowboys had done the reprint. So I'm working with Dave on a few, we'll have hopefully a game together that will be with Ravensburger next year, that will be released. And there's another project which we can't talk about, but working on a few new narrative concepts, and at least 2 signed projects. So there'll be. But Dave's really excited. You'll talk more about it, but he's a really interesting designer and really unique skill set. I think with the rise of these sort of narrative games, I think it's showing the need for even more diverse pool of designers who have different skill sets that they might have had previously, because it really is and you would appreciate, I'm sure, Paul, being an editor as well, that being a unique skill set and that sort of mastery in that field. You need to bring it calls upon different skills, and I think hopefully with the rise of that kind of in the industry and those types of games being popular, we're going to see new people like Nikki Valens as well, and Rob Vio and new designers really coming to the fore whose forte is that. And I think that's incredibly difficult, and they're talented people to be able to do it well.
Cool. Which is a very, very nice segue onto the adventure games that you designed. Because as I say, the games that you've designed, Chocolate Factory, Elysia, and all of that lot, they're Euros, and then you branched out. So what was it that made you want to do that step?
I don't know. It's sort of funny. So the adventure games are not the first sort of foray, and one of the games with Dave was actually designed before that. But I think, when I was saying about those talents of those narrative designers, I'm not one of those people who has that. I think I like to think, I think in sort of systems or ways of like interesting mechanical twists. And I think I was always interested in, it felt like narrative games were at the start of this really exciting time where things like Unlock and Time Stories sort of blew apart, you know, what people thought the game could be and what was possible. But I don't know if they were, you know, there's been so little exploration into what those games can be and how mechanically they can work. And I think while the story is of utmost importance, I think there's so much experimentation and possibility to kind of make new little twists in gameplay that give a new type of experience. And for, you know, with Phil actually, but it didn't come, so adventure games with Phil Walker Harding, and I went back to Australia. I had only met once 10 years ago, and we met at Essen a few times, but we said, oh, we should just make some games together, because that's often how I design games with people. I just want to work with them. It's not, I don't necessarily have an idea, you know, and often it's just sit down for a few hours and chat. And in that initial chat, we talked about some open adventuring system. I'm not sure if we thought of it as more like a role player kind of thing, but the adventure games sort of came out of that almost fairly fully formed. Not, I mean, you know, we worked on it. It just kind of, I think we both loved these kind of point and click adventures. There's that nostalgia, and we hadn't seen that in the marketplace. I think for me, my more successful games are when I see something, especially in a different not genre, but a different format, like video games or live action games, and I think, how can I bring that to tabletop? And for me, that was, well, it seemed a no-brainer. Nobody's done choose your own adventure. So how can we do that? I mean, it also, if Cubicle 7 or anyone's listening, that I'm not sure if you read the Lone Wolf books earlier, and you know, that was a really formative part of my well, I guess my gaming or even reading experience. And I would still very, 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 very much love. That's my number one IP that I would love to work on one day. But unfortunately, Joe is no longer with us, so I think it's complicated. But anyway, sorry, off on a tangent.
So what's lined up for the future? What have you got that you're working on that you can tell us about?
Indeed. Well, so right now, obviously, the newest expansion for Monumental African Empires is on Kickstarter as we speak. About a week to go. So that's going well. It's funded, so thanks very much to all the backers, and hopefully we'll be able to push through to an even better product. There is a new adventure game coming out in German called Hotel Abaddon. So it's a ghost story type sort of theme, and that will be released in German later this year. In English, the third one, called Volcanic Island, the adventure games, will be released in English this year. So that was. I was
going to ask about when the third one is, because I saw the third one at Essen in German, and people were like, "Paul, you said there was only two of them," and I went, "There is," and then somebody went, "Well, what's this then?" So I was like, "Oh yeah." So
it always takes them about like 6 to 9 months. I think there's always sort of a lag between the German and for example, now some other languages. So the original two are only just coming into French and Czech and a few other languages. So that's that. We have a game called Web of Spies, which is with Pegasus Spiel. That's with Brett. That's co-design. That's much more I would say a sort of Spiel des Jahres level Euro game. Quite simple, family, really nice little kind of route building game, but with the ability for you to manipulate your network. So I guess the best way to think about it is think Ticket to Ride, but where you can move your trains. I guess is almost the best pitch for that. So that should be released later this year, I think in September or October. And everything that's been announced, but I think next year will be quite a big year. I'm not sure, I mean, you probably know as well, Paul, but obviously quite a few publishers are sort of reconsidering their schedules and with all the situation, and there are, there are some there'll be, hopefully a lot of projects coming out next year, fingers crossed.
So lots of games that you've done so far, lots of games in the pipeline that you're working on, but games design is not your full-time job, is it?
No. Well, if my boss is watching, she'll. This is still technically on company time. No, but I'm a research scientist at the University of Cambridge. I moved to Cambridge originally to do my PhD, and I've stayed in the same group ever since. So I like to think that I kind of have two full-time jobs at the moment. Thankfully, game design is going really well, but it is a lot of work, and especially these narrative games, for example, are a lot of work. So I'm not sure how long that will continue, having two jobs. And obviously right now with the whole COVID thing, it's all thrown everything into, some uncertainty. But yeah, who knows? I think next year I could be looking to go full time in game design.
Okay. Would you be sad to leave your career as a research scientist, though?
I would actually. I think there's I consider it quite a part of my identity. I think it's something I've done for a long time. I do struggle with that with a bit, but I think there's at some point there's you want to do one thing really, really well, and it's hard to do two things well at the same time and really feel like you're devoting it. And academic research, while it's great in many ways, it's not very flexible in terms of having multiple kind of career paths and like that. And I think I'll still keep working sort of adjacent to that. So I actually the video is now on your channel of this diamond. So we helped develop a board game about the synchrotron in the UK for school children or even children as young as 5. And I'd like to keep doing things like that, combining games and sort of more educational, not completely educational games, but some between.
So for anybody who is watching this on YouTube in the chat, obviously I've been chatting with Matthew for a bit so far. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat and I will see them and I will ask away. Now I also had a few other things lined up that I was going to talk to you about. What was it? Yeah, so let's talk about Diamond for a minute, because obviously, well, I'm presuming here that you put them in contact with me rather than them find out about me. Yeah.
Yes, I was.
But I had absolutely no idea that we had a particle accelerator in the UK. No idea at all.
Oh, there you go.
So,
yeah. Well, I guess it's one of these things that it's tricky. You don't always want it to be really obvious where these things are, because sometimes there are some slight sort of security things. But actually, the Harwell campus, which is so Harwell is not so far from Didcot in sort of the Oxford kind of area, southwest-ish of. UK better than me. I'm not from there, but it has a really long history actually. There was a nuclear reactor. There's the synchrotron is just one of the things. There's a neutron source there as well. There's the part of the European Space Agency is there. So it's a really large complex and stretching back at least 80 years to the Second World War, I think. So there's a lot of history in that part of the UK. And yeah, I guess it's one of those things, if you're not in that industry, you don't have much reason to, it's kind of a bit in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, I would go there. I mean, that was part of my PhD. I would go there to do experiments. So I worked I still work in materials chemistry. So we're sort of interested in working out the structures of materials, and you would use the synchrotron as an instrument to do that. And it's a really great system in the UK. And I mean, I hope it would be good if more people knew about it, because actually it is funded by the government and it's very egalitarian. You apply for time, and if you're awarded that time based on the merit of the science you want to do, but you don't have to pay.
Okay.
So no matter where you are, at least that's for UK users, but anyone from the UK can go and get time on what is essentially one of the top instruments in the whole world. There are people from all over the world who come to use it. And I think hopefully if more of the public knew about that, and I think the great science that comes out of that, there would be no argument for the government not to fund that kind of. But so hopefully this game is a way to. I mean, the game is really pitched at children, not only to understand a little bit of what the synchrotron is, but also to understand really the wider sort of the diverse careers you can have in science. So there are 12 different named scientists that the players can be, from astrobiologists to a materials chemist to a sort of art historian, and I think actually opening from a very young age children understanding that science is a really wide-ranging career.
Cool. Right, let's just try the chat. So we've got a question in from Jane. Have you thought about making a game about a research scientist, or that contains the role of a research scientist? Well, that's kind of what we've just talked about, but the game we're talking about is aimed at 5 to 10-year-olds.
Yeah, and it's much more it's not an educational game per se, because it is still a game.
Yeah, yeah, I know them. Yeah. Right. Okay. People in the chat are just saying that they've lost your audio. Now, I'm not sure why that is, because my computer is set up to transmit all system sounds and I can hear you. So therefore, what I should be hearing is what they should be hearing. And I'm hearing you okay, but they're not. So just bear with us a minute. Is it right? Just confirm in the chat that you can't hear anything at all from Matthew. And I could actually listen back to it as well. Yeah, I'm getting all sorts of messages here saying YouTube is not receiving enough data to maintain a... Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop broadcasting on Facebook. So if you're watching this on Facebook, I'm going to terminate the Facebook stream just in case they're causing any complications. So thank you very much for watching. Yeah, I'm gonna terminate the Facebook one. Oh, Dave's saying it's working on Facebook. Oh, rats. Okay, so I've just terminated the Facebook one. It went glitchy on Facebook as I switched over to YouTube. Okay, so what I will do is we'll keep with it. Let us know if it is a problem. I can always just terminate the stream and come back again. So yeah, as I say, if you've got any other questions, people are saying, yeah, Dave Weatherall is basically saying, agree that Cambridge is great for games design. Andy's saying he's lost sound. What, lost sound completely? Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll terminate the stream and come back. So bear with us a minute. We will be back. Right, I have terminated it and come back. So yeah, hopefully you're back with us again. And yeah, hopefully you're going to be able to hear what Matthew's saying. Do you want to just talk a bit about something random?
Hello. Well, I mean, yes, hopefully this stream will work. Yes, it's nice in Prague. I was interested, are you involved with Vladimir Suki's stuff at all? Like I don't know what his company is. Do you do any of the rule stuff? Yes.
So involved, not quite involved. I mean, the thing is, I got to know Vladimir and actually his wife as well. So I became friends with both of them, you know, over the time that they were working with CGE. But I haven't been professionally involved in any of their games, apart from I did a video for Underwater Cities for them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both lovely people, and I have said to them, I've said, look, if you want me involved in any of your games, I'd love to work on them. Because obviously Vladimir used to do work with CGE, and then they split away, they formed Delicious Games, and they said, oh, we're going to start off and we're going to do our new game. And I was thinking, well, producing a game is hard. You run into all sorts of problems, production problems and everything else. So I was actually quite concerned for them that it was actually going to work out okay. And then Underwater Cities came out, which is a great game. The production was, the player boards were thin, but other than that, the graphic design was good. I thought the rulebook was pretty good, and it was a top quality game. And I was like, okay, great, you're all right, everything's fine. But no, I'd definitely like to get involved with them more, yeah, if I could.
No, I'd say because one of the themes in the back of my pocket always was that, I mean, I've been living in Prague off and on the last 5 years, and I always was thinking about, you know, there wasn't a big game about a Euro game about Prague, but I see that they've, you know, finally got around to doing that. So but it's nice to see that obviously it's better that a Czech is making a game about Prague.
That's true. Yeah, because if you'd have made one about
Prague, almost well, it's my home now. So.
Yeah. Do you want to just tell us a bit about why are you in Prague? Why have you moved to Prague?
Yeah, well, my girlfriend is Czech, and we've been together for about 10 years now. So really, it probably made enough sense to finally try and live in the same place as each other.
After 10 years, certainly.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
I think
I've been going back and forth. So we've had an apartment here for the last 5 years, but I have residency here now, and probably will spend more and more time in Prague. Although I still work in Cambridge as well. So. It's complicated.
Yes, yeah. Another question in from James, which is, have you considered making a solo player game only?
I have. In fact, I am working on one, but not in the tabletop sphere, actually. I'm working on a mobile game with a guy called Arnold Rowers, who runs a company called Tiny Touch Tales or Tiny Touchables. Okay. I never know whether it's another team or not. So he did a game that called Card Crawl, which is done very well, sort of a solitaire style card game. And I think he's one of the most talented in the kind of video industry, taking, I'd say, like board game games and making apps. So I sort of reached out to him sort of out of nowhere, and he was kind enough to answer my message. But we've been collaborating on a game, and hopefully it will, we're kind of in the middle of it at the moment. That it's it's a learning process for me, and there is one other game I am off and on with that would be a completely solo card game, sort of a Civilization solo game, but I haven't quite found the time for it yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, it just definitely sounds like you're doing a lot. Ori's here. Paul should try some Tiny Touch Tales games. Okay, well, there we go. Question from Andy Grant. What are your views on solo games in general? And when did you notice that the growth seems to have happened in solo games in the last 3 or 4 years? 3 or 4 years? Because, it has grown over the last 3 or 4 years. And some people are only just becoming aware of that. I've been aware of it myself for probably about 4 years or so. But that's because I've got some friends who primarily play solo games. And they've been telling me, look, Paul, the solo gaming hobby is massive. And I was like, oh, okay, is it? But because I've never had the need to go down that route, So, I think, Andy is saying, what are your views on solo games, and when did you notice that they were starting to get very popular?
I don't exactly remember when I probably noticed. I guess in the last few years, I mean, maybe, I knew David Turtsey, for example. I think you're talking to me later today. I'd known Dave for quite a while, and I think probably at some point I realized actually that, he was doing a lot of work specifically designing solo games, and the work that the Automa factory, Morden's, what's his name? The guy who does the Automa factory. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I became kind of vaguely aware of the last few years. I guess I was never exactly, as myself as a gamer, was never, maybe a bit like you, Paul, I never kind of really played solo games. I still don't so much, although there are some games which I now do play a little bit solo from time to time, and I enjoy that. And I've had to now design some solo modes for games that are becoming sort of increasingly, and it's interesting because I think it's really nice. It seems like a really nice community, the interactions I've had with it, but at the same time, it is again another skill. It's a different skill set to designing a multiplayer game necessarily, and I mean, people will have to judge me. I mean, I've seen that the Monumental solo game, which was probably the first solo mode I completely designed myself, seems reasonably well received. People can, I'm still learning as to what people enjoy in that style of game. But I think it's a perfectly acceptable way to play. It's great that there are some games now coming out which are specifically aimed at that. Actually, I will say one game which I played a lot of was, which is a completely solo game, is what's it called? The Freedom and Freeze, the computer, like the sorting problem one, which I've now forgotten its name. Whatever. It has little sweets in it, and you basically, I'm not sure if you're aware of like the sorting problem, Paul. Like it's in computer science. It's essentially if I give you a list of randomly sorted numbers, how can you write a program to sort those numbers in one to whatever? And that's kind of a famous problem of how do you? There's a sort of a limit on how efficiently you can do that, or how
the chat is trying to help us out remembering the name of the game. It's called Finished.
It's called Finished.
Finished.
Yeah, it's called Finished. I know it begins with an F. Thank you, Taxi Beast. It's and it's interesting because it takes actually a problem I knew from my undergraduate days. I did a lot of mathematics. It's sort of famous discrete mathematics, and makes it into this actually very addictive solo game. I think it's a very niche. Yeah. I mean, maybe a lot like Friedman's designs, but for me, it's this overlap of card play with sort of a mathematics problem that I played. I think the day after I got back from Essen, where I bought the game, I must have played it about 35 times or something. And each game is not that short. It's 20-25 minutes. It was one of those. It was the closest I think I've got to it was a very kind of Zen experience.
Right.
You get into flow basically, and it was very pleasurable. So yeah, I if I could make a game like that, would be great. But it's a skill set I need to develop.
Well, there is an iOS app beta in development. It's all about it's on the BGG forums. So there you go. People can join up. There is an app for it coming out for iOS.
Okay.
So.
Well, actually, I really loved it. I mean, it's good that the app's happening, but for me, actually, it was something almost like a solitaire game because you could essentially play it. You'd always have the deck in one hand, and there was something about the flow, even just the kind of rhythm of you dealing out cards, and because you'd be constantly putting cards, because the deck was essentially numbers, and you had to get the deck into order. So you were always cycling cards from the top, dealing them out, and then putting them back on the bottom, and you would have this sort of flow to it. And for me, actually, the physicality was, a lot of people would say sort of bookworky, but that was actually just part of it. I really enjoyed.
Cool. Right. Well, let's start wrapping things up. If anybody has any other questions in the chat, let them know. We've got a couple of things popping up in the chat that I don't know what they are. I don't think they're relevant. We will see. Is there anything that you wanted me to ask you?
No, I don't think I had it. No, I'm just easy to think. Someone said, "What's my thought about abstract versus theme games?" I don't have a strong. I'm making more and more abstract games as well. We'll have a game with you're just seeing everyone's seeing I'm absolutely horrible with names essentially. Even with publishers that I'm working with. Sorry, this publisher. The publisher who's done Sagrada. Floodgate. That's it. So we'll have a game with Floodgate next year, which is sort of vaguely, I think ever since there's all, again, like I think I'm always inspired when new categories sort of get opened up in this space. And I think it's not like abstract games are new games at all, but they're new in sense of the sort of modern hobby, with high production values. And I think there's a lot of interesting space there still. So, and like my first game, Relic Runners, was based on the traveling salesman's problem, which is another famous mathematical problem. I think I just get inspiration wherever it sort of come from, even if it's an abstract idea or mathematical.
So Chocolate
problem.
Factory, just picking on that one for example, was that initially, we want to make a game about a chocolate factory?
No, that game went through so many different things. It was with several different publishers. And at one point was known affectionately as Cube Burner 3000. It was, I think, initially for us it always had this conveyor belt, but it had no theme. It was just, and we actually in this case we didn't even try. We were just like, we're gonna have here's a boatload of colored cubes. Here's this fun conveyor belt mechanism. And we called it, I think, like it was literally an engine builder. I mean, that was it. And when it was interesting though, when we showed it to Cesar and then he had this idea for the chocolate factory, it made perfect sense actually, but we had not thought about it at all before that. So that's a nice, it's always nice when, I really believe strongly that both developers and publishers and editors, all the people involved in the process, it's really nice that I think they can add a lot to games, and it's always nice when you're working with people who do add to that, like a designer. Can only do so much, and I think the best games are always the result of a collaboration, not necessarily just a design collaboration, but a collaboration with illustrator, graphic designer, rulebook editor, developer, publisher, and when all those work together, then I think you get the best game.
There's kids making noises outside. That's what people can hear on the stream, so apologies for that. Yeah, I mean, as you say, getting the designer involved, and quite often the publisher will either completely re-theme your game, or in the case of Chocolate Factory, they will put a theme on a completely abstract game. And obviously I stick my nose in sometimes where it's not wanted with suggestions. I think the biggest change I've ever had to a thematic part of a game was in the Gallerist. And there's a part of the Gallerist where you can increase your notoriety on this track or something like that. And when I first played a prototype of it, it was like, okay, so we know what this is doing, but at the end of the day, it's an abstract, there's a track, you can do this thing over here to move up this track, and this track gives you certain benefits. And I spoke to Vittel after our first game, and I said, I think this should be like a reputation track. So like step 0 is nobody knows who you are. Step 1 is you've maybe done a little painting thing at your local arts thing on a Friday afternoon. Step 2 is you've been on a local radio show, and all the way up right to the end where you've got your own TV show, 6-week series. And it was basically publicity and recognition. And he went, that fits exactly with the theme, and that's what it became. So it's rare that I have that much input on a theme of the game, but it was nice that both the designer and the publisher were open to listening to, suggestions of what might work better. So
yeah, no, that is really valuable.
So last question, this is from Jonathan from the Hexy Beast. Can you tell us anything about the Floodgate game? He loves Sagrada, or do you have to keep quiet?
I mean, I don't really know how quiet I have to be, but no, I mean, it hasn't really been announced, but it's broadly in the sort of style of games like Azul, or it's a connection making game, and it's with Brett Gilbert again. And all I can say is the artwork is absolutely incredible.
So artwork's
actually
been doing for it. Right, okay.
Well, we've seen some drafts, and I don't really know if I could, but it has almost it's unlike any other game in terms of the art style, and they've absolutely hitting it out of the park.
Okay.
So look out for that one, hopefully next year, and maybe they'll announce more about it this year.
Cool.
I'm not sure.
So, final question: what game are you going to play next?
What game am I going to play next? Oh gosh, am I playing a game today? Well, I'm going to be playtesting. Actually, I'm playtesting with Brett later this evening. Something Dice Hospital related, actually. So who knows what will happen there? But yeah, a few just playtesting.
How are you doing your playtesting?
This one we're doing. It's so we're just using our own. We've printed out stuff on either end, and I just hold my phone over the thing, over the sort of central zone where we have to see things come out. It's very hacked together. I've been using Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator a bit, but sometimes when you just want to try things out, I don't want to have to go through the process of trying to upload everything, and so it's all a bit hacked together at the moment. But I have been making games to Tabletopia, like Tony Boydell and I have a new game called Iron Almanac together that so it's a Snowdonia card game kind of that we've been testing completely out of Tabletopia. It's always for me only listed digitally, and that's going really well. So yeah, I'm sort of adapting to this new world, but where I can, I'm doing things still physically, and thankfully here in Prague, the restrictions have mostly lifted, so we can have person designer meetings and things like that. So
cool.
Somewhat fortunate.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to head off now and look at my schedule to see what I've got next, which I can't remember what I've got next.
Well, enjoy the convention.
Yeah, no, that's all right. And if you're watching this and you don't know what Virtual GridCon is, then Virtual GridCon is an online gaming convention that I'm organising this weekend, of which I'm doing a series of live Q&As and some playthroughs as well. So I've got Davey Turtsey on later on tonight, and then Ryan Courtney. Well, yeah, Davey Turtsey this afternoon. Got a game of Codenames online later on today. And then Ryan Courtney is joining me tonight for a chat. And kind of linked in, but separate from the virtual convention, is I'm currently running a charity raffle. I say they're linked in because they're both happening at the same time. You do not have to attend the virtual convention if you want to support the charity. So we're doing a charity raffle at the moment. The current prizes are valued at over £3,000, and I've had some emails this afternoon from other publishers wanting to contribute. So if you are able to contribute to the charity raffle, yeah, I should put a link up on screen right now, but I don't have it to hand. Just go to justgiving.com/virtualgridcon or message me or whatever. You'll find it. The current figure, when I last looked at it, was £5,800.
Oh, and all I can add, I'll add it to your spreadsheet, but we can add a copy of Ray's for those who are interested.
There you go.
Reach over to my pile. So I'll
fantastic.
put that on
You're
the
happy to
spreadsheet
ship that anywhere in the world? Right, there you go. So yeah, more live prizes coming in as we speak. So yeah, we've raised, I don't want to swear, but we've raised a lot of money. So yeah, way more than expected. So yeah, if you are able to contribute to the raffle, then please do so. Other than that, Matthew, I will say goodbye. Thank you very much for coming on, and I'll speak to you later.
Pleasure as always. Thank you, Paul.
Cheers all. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Gaming Rules is proudly sponsored by Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Visit GameToppersLLC.com.